Hello and welcome back to the Edge Computing channel. My name is Zoe Turner and I'm a digital portfolio manager for DCD. And we are now taking part in the Edge in Action series in DCD. So thank you so much for joining us. To kick us off, we have a great panel partnered with CtrlS. So thank you very much to them for joining us on this episode, where we'll be looking at the next wave of compute, particularly India at the edge. So to talk about this topic, I have Vipul Kumar, who is Vice President of Edge and Networks at CtrlS, Manoj Sukumaran, who is Principal Analyst of Data Center Compute and Networking at Omdia, and Rachit Mohan, who is APAC Lead of Data Center Leasing, JLL. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, just before we get started, Vipul, if you want to give give a brief introduction to yourself and tell us why this is an important topic to be discussing today.
Okay, so I'm Vipul Kumar. I'm part of Edge and Network Business Unit at CtrlS. I lead a few of the markets when it comes to edge data centers in India. And apart from this, I'm also responsible for hyperscale network business development in India. We as an organization are focusing very much on expansion in edge cities, and it is at our top agenda. So yeah, that's why we are here to talk about it. And since the time I've joined CtrlS, I'm talking edge. Actually, I'm breathing edge.
Very nice. And Manoj, as well, if you want to give a brief introduction to yourself and your initial thoughts on this conversation of India at the edge.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity. So, I'm Manoj Sukumaran, Principal Analyst for Data Center Compute and Networking at Omdia. And in my research, I track everything related to compute and the servers and the GPU and CPU technologies, which is being used in servers, and the networking aspect of the servers as well. And obviously, we are at a very peculiar time in our life where the AI, the demand for AI and the various AI services is creating a significant influence on our day-to-day lives. And all of this is actually being processed from data centers, and data centers is becoming a critical aspect of everybody's life, day-to-day life. So India being one of the largest populous country in the world and having one of the largest user base for all kind of applications and like data services, there is a lot of demand for computing from the Indian user base, and I'll be very glad to share my thoughts about the future for the data centers in India. Thank you.
Wonderful. And Rachit from JLL, obviously you also work in this market and you have a lot to share, I'm sure. But give us a brief introduction to yourself and your initial perspectives on this.
Thanks a lot, Zoe. Hi, my name is Rachit Mohan. I do two things in JLL. I run our data center leasing business for the Asia Pac region. Along with that, I also run our digital infrastructure capital markets group for India. I've been with JLL for 20 plus years and happy to be extending my experience and relationships in this part of the industry today. Edge is what we're seeing today. If you look at the market globally, the amount of investment that is going into training and building large language models and AI internationally, the amount of investment which is going in from some of the research labs and private institutions into building AI is huge. There are many very, very large, significant projects where we are training a lot of models for development of AI. As we go to the next phase of this development and this growth, we're going to go into a phase of implementation by way of inferencing, and there's going to be a lot of inferencing workloads which are about to come. And a lot of this inferencing is going to happen closer to the user. and which is closer to the edge, right? It can happen at device level, it can happen at network level, at connectivity level, but really the edge node is where we expect a lot of compute to come in times to come. Um, and with that in mind, it is for some of these large scale AI models to be successful on the implementation side and actual revenue generation side. We're at this cusp where it's extremely important for data center investors, digital infra investors, and operators to build infrastructure to be able to hold and host this kind of compute at scale closer to the users. So yeah, that's edge for all of us, and exciting days ahead.
Excellent. Well, Vipul, just to come back to you for a moment, obviously we've gotten a little overview of where we are with Edge in India today, and as you've said, there's a lot of growth that we can expect. But what are some of the key drivers just for data center growth in India today? Because it seems to be an exponential growth that we're seeing all the time.
I think the data center growth story in India started during the pre-COVID era when government of India announced a data localization policy. That was the inflection point of growth story of data center in India. So there was a law from government that certain user with respect to Indian user should remain in India, and that is how the growth story of data center started in India, in my opinion. So yeah, so data localization law is one of them. Then there is a rapid digital growth which is happening across India. Initially, this digital growth was only limited to metro cities like Mumbai, Chennai, Bangalore, Kolkata, and Delhi. But now it is expanding very fast to smaller cities, wherein state government are very particular about digital growth in their state, in their territory. They're also coming up state level data localization law, and it is very relevant that the data center as an infrastructure will span from tier 1 cities to tier 2 and tier 3 cities in India. We at CtrlS are one of the few data center, I would say, that who have gone ahead and done speculative investment in micro cities in India. We started our edge journey with a city called Patna and Lucknow. These are micro city in state of Bihar and state of Uttar Pradesh. These are actually capital of Bihar and Uttar Pradesh. And I would say Patna as a edge location is not only one of the first success story when it comes to CtrlS, but it is one of the first success story for entire India, because in Patna we started our facility. It was a brownfield facility, 109 rack capacity, and today we are completely sold out. We have customer ranging from internet exchanges to enterprises to web hosting customer to ISPs, telcos, and we also have a 5G node deployment in our data center. Because of this success story, we are also coming up with a greenfield facility in Patna. It's a bigger facility now. It is close to 1,000 rack facility, 10 megawatt designed IT load capacity. And we have signed a deal or contract with a hyperscaler customer also, which I cannot disclose because of the non-disclosure agreement, but time will come and they will announce, right? So yeah, we are seeing good traction when it comes to smaller cities in India.
Wonderful. Thank you for clarifying that for us.
I just wanted to add a couple of points to what Vipul said. Like the user base in India is quite enormous to the scale of when you compare it to the scale of any other geography in the world, right? So we have like 1.1 billion mobile users, um, close to around more than 800 million internet users, and obviously the telecom advancements that we have made the mobile data rates and basically the data rates for internet really affordable. So what it resulted is like the Indian users, typical Indian internet users, they consume the largest like per capita data in the world. I think we have around 32 GB per user per month of consumption, data consumption, compared to a global average of around 19 GB. So that's like a big difference. And another interesting stat I recently came across is like about 50% of around just over 50% of Indian internet users go online primarily to watch videos or TV or like watch movies. So that means that they have a highly data intensive like app consumption or the internet consumption. So having localized data centers definitely make a lot of sense, because uh, added on top of all these facts is that we are a very vibrant society. We have a big diversity in the languages that we speak in different states and all that, and also about 97% of the netizens in India use Indic languages when they're either watching a video or like watching a movie and stuff like that. So it actually resonates well to have localized data center, for example, to store Tamil movie content and Tamil video in Tamil Nadu, and maybe a Telugu video content in data centers in Hyderabad, because that actually reduces the network load. It actually creates a lot more efficiencies in the system. So I think if you look at it from that data gravity standpoint, India is like a perfect use case for edge computing or like decentralized data centers, I would say.
Manoj, in fact, I would say that the way the world is going, it's not just the storage, it's going to be compute, right? It may be the same content which might be sitting in one data center in Singapore or Mumbai or whatever, and you will have cache-ins in Telangana or Tamil Nadu, but then with that cache-in you may have compute. So that same content using AI will convert the lip movement as well as the language to Tamil and Telugu, and that would be done. The compute would happen closer to the user, and the real growth which we feel is going to come around the compute part. So what Vipul mentioned about the greenfield data center that CtrlS is building, I won't be surprised in the next 3 years if there are 30 of those data centers across the country, right? And each one of them with heaps of compute, and that could be this is one hyperscaler, right? And it's really the content companies, the big content companies, which are really going to be taking the lead, or the OTTs who are going to take a lead in pushing this. So if as your Netflix experience or your TV experience moves from a single directional or single dimensional content video movement to more game like or interactive experiences, and you put in, today we are using 4K televisions that will move to 32K to 64K in times to come, and you'll have augmented reality and all kinds of good things which are going to start playing on top, and you'll need compute close to that, next to that. And that's where the boom really happens, right? And we would be looking for, we'll be running short of power in these data centers soon because of that.
Absolutely, I completely agree with you. That's definitely the next wave. But when I look at it, so I have one slight disagreement out there is like happening that compute happening at the edge, right? Because if you look at AI, it's not really an AI, sorry, a latency sensitive workload. You don't mind like if your video generation app take maybe a couple of minutes or like couple of more seconds to generate that video. Even if you are interacting with Chat GPT, even if that tool take like 50 milliseconds or like 1 or 2 seconds extra, it does not really create a big difference in the user experience. So the compute intensive applications, obviously, since you also highlighted the point that this is like really power hungry GPUs processing all this compute, right? So I believe that power, that intensive computing, that compute intensive workloads will be located in close proximity to regions where there is very cheap power available. And if you look at India, we are, at least at this point of time, is a power deficit nation. We for our energy needs, we are completely dependent on the fossil fuels which we import, and also means the energy that we produce internally is not really fulfilling all of our requirements, right? So I think that point I have a slight difference, but definitely that is, if you look at the whole data center investments, where it is going and what is happening, definitely AI is one of the biggest areas where all these investments are going, and we have our own estimates of what kind of investment will happen. Right now, all the data center capex investments are in the $400 billion dollar range, and Omdia forecasts it to hit around it close to $1 trillion investment annually by the end of 2030. So all that majority is driven by AI.
I think these are some really important points to bring up, particularly when we take that workload first approach to edge deployments. Vipul, what are your kind of thoughts on that? So obviously we're looking at content heavy workloads, we're looking at latency sensitive workloads. AI, of course, is always throwing a spanner in the works. But what's your take in kind of, having that workload first approach for these edge deployments and what that's going to mean for the Indian market?
See, one data point I would like to highlight here. We as a country are generating 20% of the global data content, right? But the data centers, which, if we talk about the entire data center capacity, which India deploys, is just 3% of the global capacity. So there is a massive growth opportunity which is there, and nobody can deny it. All the experts, including Rachit and Manoj here, will agree to that, right?
Absolutely.
And second point I would like to highlight here is we as a nation are transiting from centralized to a decentralized approach. So everything, if you see today, is located, majority of the content, majority of the workload are either sitting in Mumbai, Chennai, or some portion of it are sitting in software hubs like Bangalore. And because Delhi is a capital, also there are workloads there in Delhi also, because of the political capital of India, there are workloads deployed in Delhi also. But now the trend is changing. The trend is changing because there is only one approach which everybody wants to follow now, which is user experience first approach. So the data is getting generated in the micro cities of India. The workload needs to shift closer to the place or location where the data is getting generated, right? Yeah. So I think it has not fully started in India, but it is still in a evolving stage. But down the line, 3 to 5 years, it is definitely going to happen. And I'm seeing a lot companies going to edge market and doing investment there.
Wonderful. I mean, obviously, there's a lot to think about as well when you think where to put a data center. And as you've said, with smaller cities, smaller towns, and smaller regions throughout India, you need that latency and you need that low latency and that connectivity to be very close. When it comes to things, however, like data sovereignty, obviously edge is becoming valuable across the world for managing data sovereignty requirements. Vipul, maybe you can explain this for me a little bit. How can we leverage the edge to balance out the needs for our data sovereignty in India in particular?
Yeah, like I said in the beginning of this conversation, it's not only the central government of India who have come up with a data localization law, but more and more state government are coming up with a data localization law, and businesses, specifically in, like Manoj said, there are different languages spoken across Indian states. So people are more satisfied and more convinced when the data is lying within their state boundaries. They don't want to keep their regional data in cities like Mumbai, Chennai, or Delhi. So that is one of the factor why there is a need and there is a demand of local micro data centers across different heartlands of India. And yeah, and I think state governments are coming up with various policies as well to promote digital growth across it. There are state government who have planned to uh, announce or recognize digital content or digital infrastructure as critical infrastructure as road and power.
Wonderful. Manoj, what's your take on this as well? Obviously, there's a bit of a comparison between India and other countries in the world when it comes to data sovereignty. But where do you think that the role of edge is in this discussion?
See, I think data is a very critical factor of this whole thing, right? And where even you talk about like uh, the usage patterns of data, the consumer behavior, the online consumer behavior, it is actually having a big impact on the population, and some video going viral somewhere can actually create big influence on the people and their reactions either to various things, right? It could be even like it could actually mean some video going viral somewhere could create like social unrest in many places. So the user data and what users consume and what how users consuming and what kind of like information they use is becoming one of the very critical aspects. And some of the governments have earlier means already identified the threat of it, so they put very strong data sovereignty, data security rules in place. But gradually it is becoming adopted by all of the countries. So that is why when we are talking about like the AI security or like AI laws and all that which is coming up, there is a lot more emphasis on data sovereignty, on AI sovereignty, and all that. So I think at one point we'll have to create a very strong strand that we have a very large population, and we feed all these large companies with a lot of user data and also user patterns, right? For example, if you look at the social media platforms, when I last read, YouTube had close to 500 million users in India, and Facebook and Instagram has got like 350 plus million users in India, and this is their largest market. There is no other country which comes even close in terms of the number of users. But yet, for example, if you look at Meta, they don't have a data center in India, and all of the data and the social media patterns of Indian users are actually either sitting in US, Europe, or in Singapore, which is the data center locations for Meta. So I think there is as people highlighted, there is a big gap in what is the infrastructure which is needed for India and what is the infrastructure that is existing in India, and this has to be bridged over time. But the point is we are in a chicken and egg kind of situation. So for the data centers to come in, we need to have power. So how do you have the power? How do you like that is actually the biggest problem here. How do you manage it? And you cannot put a law saying like, hey, put all my citizens data in India, but then the companies need the infrastructure. That infrastructure needs power, and that becomes a problem. So it has to happen gradually, and I hope that having an energy self-sufficiency will be a priority for the government going forward, because as Sam Altman said a couple of months back, the abundance of energy will represent the abundance of intelligence going forward. And that is actually one of the remarks then he made when they were opening huge data centers in the Middle East, where there is a lot of energy available. So I think that becomes one of the priorities for the government of India to work on. But this gap is there that actually gives a lot of opportunity for a lot of vendors to play a role there to bridge that gap.
Wonderful. I mean, I think this is really important to discuss as well. We've kind of touched on the infrastructure considerations to start with, but let's dig into that a little bit deeper because, as you've both said, there's a lot to think about there. Rachit, obviously from your perspective, you have that thought of where can we put this data center? How do we lease it? What are the requirements? What are the biggest challenges for maybe edge site deployments, particularly in maybe these more remote cities and remote regions where they're needed more?
For starters, I don't think, especially when you are looking at a country like India, a lot of these cities are still not as remote. I mean, these cities, be it, we just spoke about, Vipul spoke about Patna, or, cities like Lucknow or Coimbatore or Cochin or Jaipur or Ahmedabad, these kind of cities where we are seeing a lot of the edge deployments happen right now. They're not remote. I mean, these cities have anywhere from 5 to 10 million populations, right? I mean, these are big cities, and so I think where the compute is going to go around edge, and without really commenting which large content player has presence in India or not, but any social media content organization or an OTT player, and I'll put them on similar bracket over here. For them, business conversion is linked to the number of people they can touch, and as the internet penetration increases in a country, into deep country, as fiber connectivity increases, as mobility increases, the number of users who can be targeted to build a TAM for or targeted market for those content companies is expanding over there, and that is probably where putting up these edge data centers is of high importance. So if, let's say, in India you have high level of population concentration in, let's say, the states of UP and Bihar, and the consumption pattern of OTT content and content or social media content is very high in those places, right? And business is only going to grow more. There's more business use case for the content providers, the OTT guys, the CDNs, to go and put deployments in those places so they can push content and add compute over there in times to come. That's number one. But you can't only look at it in unilaterally with that lens alone. What you also need to look at is the GDP contribution of that area or the consumption pattern on those areas. So now an OTT player or a content firm gets access to a certain part of the country, and they're able to push content to users in a certain zone. But then what is the revenue stream for that content organization? It is from the FMCG players, from different advertising revenue coming in from different. So only when you have, so there's an equilibrium between ad revenue for the content companies customers, when they can push content, that is linked. So ad revenue will come highest from urban centers, where the buying power is the highest typically. Now, as you're going more rural or more of these kind of cities, wherever you see economic growth happening at the fastest pace and wealth creation happening at a fast pace, that is where you would see economic spending patterns coming up, and that is where the ad revenue would be highest. So you will see economic benefit of moving. So you could have, let's say, a cricket World Cup being pushed in certain parts of the country. Now you've touched all these eyeballs, which is great. But then if, let's say, a certain chocolate brand needs to push their content on the back of your network through your OTT in that location, are they getting conversion? Are they getting sales because of that? That's something that we need to be conscious of. The second thing that we need to keep in mind is it's a smaller point, especially when you are doing deployments across the board, across geographies, is movement of talent, availability of talent, movement of equipment, availability of equipment, backup equipment, network resiliency, network availability in these kind of locations, so that if there is a downtime, how quickly are you able to get a qualified engineer to fly in and fly out and actually solve that problem over there and get the equipment over there. Those supply chain are, again, especially on the backup equipment. How are you solving that? I mean, that backup equipment could be stored in Nagpur for all you know, or it could be stored in Mumbai, and how quickly can that reach in different uh, edge sites is something that we need to keep in mind. These are some of my views.
Wonderful.
I think I just wanted to add one point to what Rachit said. Very great point. The primary driver for growth in micro cities will be content consumption, but I think content is no longer just consumed. It is being created everywhere. So it's not only about content consumption, it is also about content generation, right? So, very fun fact and unbelievable fact for me that Bihar is one of the biggest content generation generating state in India, and that is why there are hyperscaler customer who is going and setting up a huge facility there in Patna, right, to serve the local content generation and consumption demand in that particular region. So yeah, I think both generation and consumption is now hyper local. It is no longer centralized, but I would call it as a hyper local thing.
Wonderful. So getting into, obviously all of this is going to take an impact on how we build up these data centers, how we cool them, how we power them, where we put them alone. But I think, Rachit, you brought up an interesting topic of, the people that it requires to run these and to put them together. Vipul, I think I'll go to you on this question, but what are the challenges, obviously, throughout the industry across the world? We're looking at workforce shortages, skill shortages. How, maybe from a CtrlS perspective, are you managing this, or is there a way that we can manage this for the future to bring people in?
I think there is a clear-cut shortage of skilled workforce in the smaller and micro cities in India. So that is definitely a challenge, and even in the deployment phase, we are facing this challenge wherein we have to deploy skilled workforce from a metro region. They go there, they deploy. So how we are managing is we are keeping a local engineering workforce there, but all these micro facilities are hy- are connected to the hyperscale facilities and are remote monitored from these facilities. For instance, all our micro facilities are being monitored from Hyderabad as well as Mumbai. They are all connected, and even the building management system, everything is connected to Hyderabad and Mumbai, and there is a continuous monitoring which is happening. And there is a local on-ground engineering team also available for instant support. And obviously we follow a standardized design. So depending upon the market dynamics and requirement we see in a particular market, uh, we design data center as rated 4 or rated 3. Majority of our data center are rated 4 designed, wherein everything is redundant, including the power, the backup, even the network, the entry points, and all these facilities are carrier neutral, wherein customer can come and decide which operator to go and negotiate and connect with. We don't restrict any customer to connect with any operator.
Wonderful. When it comes to, the power generation across the region, even in the UK, we struggle significantly with how much power is required of these newer data centers that are trying to deal with AI workloads and HPC workloads. It's costing a lot. When it comes to, the different regions in India, how do you deal when it comes to outages or making sure that you've got a resilient power infrastructure to be able to support those edge sites?
I think as long as the grid availability is concerned, it's not a challenge in smaller region. But I think the availability time of electricity in smaller region as compared to a metro region is a challenge. So you need a robust backup mechanism there. You cannot take a chance because the power reliability in terms of availability in which power is available in a micro city vis-a-vis Mumbai, Delhi, or Chennai is different. So there can be a power cut on account of infrastructure management, on account of load shedding, whatever, right? So yeah, I think you need a robust backup mechanism to deal with it. But the local government are very supportive, and wherever we have seen this as facility coming up or established, these are primarily capital cities of India. So like Rachit said, these are not remote locations. So there are better power infrastructure available. Unlike a remote city in India, these cities are much more advanced in terms of power availability, in terms of power infrastructure availability. And obviously, the local government are very supportive in making the power infrastructure and availability for a data center or digital infrastructures available.
Just to add to what Atul said, like if you look at it from a global standpoint, uh, uh, according to Omdia's estimate, the total data center built up capacity is around 150 gigawatts at the end of like 2024, and it is expected to go beyond 400 gigawatt by the end of 2030. And if you look at it from the various workload, AI itself is one of the largest consumers of this capacity, which needs to be built. And even like advanced countries, like developed countries like US, they're the operators are taking very unconventional ways to generate power. A lot of these large data center operators are actually running gas turbines on their premise. The XAI Colossus data center, which Elon Musk built, a 200,000 GPU cluster, which trains the Grok 3, Grok 4 model. A significant portion of the power for that data center comes from gas turbines burning natural gas on premise the data center. And if you look at the new Stargate project, which is coming up in Abilene, Texas, which is the part of the Crusoe, Oracle, and OpenAI's project. The majority of the power capacity is being built on the on-premise using again gas turbines. So I think, and if you look at the long term, we are talking about like small modular reactors coming into power data centers. Companies like Westinghouse or Kairos Power, X Energy, which got investments from AWS, or NewScale. All these companies are like setting up power plants or like small modular nuclear reactors to generate power for data centers in the 2028, 2029, 2030 time frame. So even the power surplus countries are actually taking these radical approaches to power their data centers and their AI capacity. And I think we as a country, I think there is a lot more investment has to happen in that area to make sure that we have enough power for data centers and the computing going forward. And I think that should be a priority for. I'm sure that's a priority for the government also.
Excellent. Well, this has been incredibly insightful. There's something as well. Naturally, Vipul, I know you are a telco networks and edge expert, so I had to ask you this question. We mentioned this briefly in our prep call, but when it comes to this connectivity, obviously for these edge sites, what role will telcos play in this regional data center connectivity? I know you have a particular kind of focus on, for instance, landing cable stations or cable landing stations for subsea cables. There's obviously a lot to discuss there, but what are kind of your thoughts on this for the future of for edge?
I think for any data center, be it edge facility or a hyperscaler facility, to be successful, presence of a terrestrial capacity, terrestrial fiber is very important, and that's where telco comes into picture. They it's their role is absolutely very important when it comes to running uh, and connecting the edge facility in a micro city in India. Uh, so any smaller facility in, let's say, Patna or Lucknow or Ahmedabad or Jaipur, they need to connect back to a central location, right? So there is a play and role telco has to play to connect that, provide that robust infrastructure, resilient backbone capacity to connect those smaller cities back to the mainland. So it's about connecting the heartland of India to the mainland of India, right? So that's where telcos play an important role. However, if you talk about presence of underground fibers and presence of the number of telcos in micro cities in India, the penetration is low as compared to a metro city in India. Number of telcos who have a robust fiber as well as connectivity presence in Mumbai, Delhi, Chennai, Bangalore, vis-a-vis their presence in Patna and Lucknow or Jaipur is limited. So that poses a challenge, but I think availability of a national backbone, it is very much there in this region. So at least this the connectivity from this micro cities back to the mainland is very much possible.
Wonderful. I mean, Rashid, Manoj, do you have any thoughts on this as well when it comes to these network hubs, for instance, as we've discussed, Mumbai and Chennai, that are and how that's influencing kind of those national strategies for connection and for those fiber cabling?
Yeah, see, network is a big part of this whole conversation. As you know, if you look at India as a market, right? The data center to data center connectivity, is it's a lot of it is point to point connectivity, which is being provided right now. We do not have dark fiber at scale in this market per se, offering connectivity per se. And there are various layers, and as you go dig deeper on these layers, right? The passive fiber, a lot of times the passive fiber in the country may or may not even have right of ways secured in many cases. Now, on one side, you need to understand this, and on the other side, you need to look at the kind of disruption which is happening on the subsea fiber connectivity, where some of the hyperscalers, what used to be a telco-led world, where telcos were building collaborations and groups together to put a large subsea fiber network, where content companies and cloud companies were actually running as anchor tenants, and from anchor tenants they started to co-invest. From co-investment, now they've started building their own infrastructure, right? We are going to see in times to come some of the large hyperscalers take very, very bold steps and plan newer paths, shorter paths, longer paths, depending on geopolitics, depending on many other such use cases. And we will see, with that happening, there's going to be disruption on the commercial subsea cable network. We've already seen some happen. There will be more. And around some of that, um, location for data centers, especially for training and cloud infrastructure and all, may alter entirely in times to come. But again, this is a little bit forward looking at this point in time. Edge will continue the way it is continuing. Another thing to watch very carefully are some of the projects, some of the shallow water harpooning projects which have been in the works, connecting some of the port cities in the country, uh, and how that may help improve connectivity into deep country per se. So that's again something which would be interesting. Vizag is something which is very very interesting in India in times to come from a lot of perspectives.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I think let me add my perspective on the submarine cable and how it will add fuel to the India's or the smaller city economy. As we speak, we are talking about we have 17 cables live in India, and the 17 cables are landed across 14 cable landing station in India, scattered across just five cities in India, and majority of them being concentrated across Mumbai and Chennai, with few of them getting landed at smaller cities like Kochi, Tuticorin, and Trivandrum. These are all old cables. There was one CMV3 cable which is now retired. So yeah, I think wherever a submarine cable lands, uh, there is a development. Let's say there is a submarine cable which is proposed to get landed in Digha. Geo is the operator who have signed a contract and agreement with West Bengal to land a cable in Digha. Wherever the cable land, it will bring a series of data center deployment, series of edge deployment, series of maybe hyperscaler deployment. You never know that one point of time will see a hyperscale facility deployment in a smaller city in India. Kolkata, there used to be only one data center in India. Now there is a tech park which is created in Kolkata. Control has have also launched a hyperscale facility, though we call it a edge facility, but it's a hyperscale facility. And you name a data center player, they are deploying a data center, hyperscale data center in facility in Kolkata. Nobody would have thought that Kolkata will have so much hyperscale facility deployment, right? So whenever a cable will land anywhere in the world or any corner of India, it will bring development in terms of infrastructure development, in terms of hyperscale facility development, in terms of uh, edge facility development. So I would say submarine cable landing in India is directly proportional to the development happening in that port city. Now, coming back to the original point, there are many upcoming cities being talked about, under discussion for landing a cable in India. Puri, right? There are no cable announced, but government of Orissa have gone ahead and they've started building a open cable landing station in Puri. It will be kind of plug and play cable landing station, right? With a ready-made backhaul and front haul, wherein uh, any cable getting landed in India, if it is crossing or nearby to that particular region, they can just land there without any subsequent capex investment. So I think uh, cable landing station uh, being driven by major telcos in India to an open cable landing station concept is gaining traction in India. And like Rachit said, there are hyperscaler customer who are investing full-fledged in cable. There is a project called Waterworth project which is announced, and all these hyperscaler prefer to work with a carrier neutral partner rather than a mainstream telco in India.
Gentlemen, I'm afraid we are very quickly running out of time, but thank you so much for joining us on this. What I'd like to do is just give you each an opportunity to leave us with your final thoughts. What do you think the audience should take away from this conversation? What's next, and what should we be keeping an eye out for? Manoj, I think we'll start with you.
Yeah, sure. I think it's a great conversation. It all we agree on the the big impact or the big demand for data centers in India, and why the having data centers in India is important, and also why we think that a distributed kind of data center distributed kind of data center deployment in India will be the most suitable one for India. I think there is a lot more to be done in this area, and I think the vendors who can actually crack the puzzle, right? Because you have power problem, you have a connectivity problem, and you have this market opportunity out there. So the vendors who can actually crack these problems and actually get into the users and deliver the infrastructure to provide the surging services, I think there will be a lot of winners in this market, I guess. And I think for the government of India also, I think there will be a lot of initiative to solve some of these problems that we discussed, whether it is a power problem or the connectivity problem. I think these are some of the things which can be handled by which needs to be handled at the government and the industry organization level, right? So I think that there will be, I think we are in the right direction. I guess there is a lot of momentum in the market, and with a lot of push for from AI and the investments happening in AI, I think the future is bright for the data centers in India.
Wonderful. Rachit, do you agree with this? Is the future for edge data centers bright in India as well, or is there anything else that maybe you want to leave us with?
I think a lot of this is going to come from speculative investment. I think demand is going to come in. Gosh, how prepared are we as operators and as a larger ecosystem to build speculative infrastructure ahead of the actual demand coming in? So the top 30 cities, these are city center locations going and putting up these kind of data centers. I think finding that capital to invest in speculative build is going to be the actual key. Otherwise, we will continue to play makeup. That this is when we would end up doing something very, very strategic, a lot like what Odisha government has done in Puri. We need to do that with edge data centers in the country. That's and Teco backhaul along with that. That's my key input here.
Excellent. And Vipul from CtrlS, obviously, as this is a CtrlS partner episode, I really wanted to get your final thoughts last here to kind of round out this conversation for us and what this will mean for the future of Edge in India.
So I think I just want to clarify in my final thoughts that edge, when it comes to edge, there are two players to it. One is edge application deployment or developers. Other one is the edge infrastructure service provider. So where companies like CtrlS come into place, we are edge infrastructure service enablers and providers, right? And what we see is edge will shift from pilot projects to full-scale production projects in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. That's one, right? Like I said, data is a hybrid local now. Content consumption as well as content generations. Both are important. So consumption can be in larger cities, but generation can happen in smaller cities as well. So there are content generation which is happening in smaller cities, but the consumption is actually happening across the India for those content being generated in smaller cities. So that is also a catalyst for edge deployment in India, right? And I agree that any data center deployment is especially in micro cities, is going to be a speculative investment, and not all players can do it at once in all the cities. But it's chicken and egg story because it's a high capital intensive thing. So what we have done is, as an organization, to test water, we have also come up with a concept of modular data center. We have recently launched a container data center in Bhubaneswar. It's just modular design, full-fledged data center with power backup, with sitting capacity inside a container, and it can scale. It's a 10 rack facility, and we have launched that to test water in Bhubaneswar. If we get success, we can quickly convert it into a greenfield facility also, right? And we are, as an organization, are committed to go ahead and do more deployments, and we are expecting to deploy as data center in 60 plus cities in India in next 2 to 3 years.
Excellent. Well, we can't wait to see how it pans out, and we will definitely be keeping an eye on that expansion. But gentlemen, thank you again so much for joining us, and we sincerely hope that we get the chance to speak with you in a few months' time and see how all of this has changed. But in the meantime, thank you.